Hello, and welcome to my 7th review. This is of sleater-kinney's album The Woods, which came out in 2005. So as sleater-kinney has progressed as a band, you've seen that each album has had a totally different sound, a totally different vibe. That does not change with this album. This album is definitely one of the most different albums in terms of production, at least. And as you'll hear, it sounds really sort of crunchy and distorted and jarring. They decided to go somewhere totally dark and scary, which is really cool to listen to. The first song on this album is The Fox. So as you can clearly already hear, it's super like distorted, crunchy, totally crazy sounding. It's talking about ducks and foxes, just like a fable would, and in those verses when it has that sort of comically elastic guitar part is to me reminiscent of sounds in cartoons, so those two things together reference youth, which I'm not really sure what they're trying to say, but that's really the only part I really enjoy from this song. That's definitely a good introduction to the album because you get to hear sort of how the sound has changed. It's just hard for me to get a grasp on what exactly is going on. The second song on this album is Wilderness. Those are her parents' names. It's kind of weird when you realize that the song is a little bit about sort of a relationship falling apart and she's singing about her parents. I love Korn's voice. This whole chorus part just isn't quite as interesting as I feel like it should be. I kind of wish Korn sung this entire song because Carrie just doesn't sound that great on it. The reason it's interesting that the song starts out a little bit more positive and then slowly gets a little bit crazier is that the whole song seems to be about a relationship that is sort of falling apart. So it starts out positive just like the song, but then it sort of gets and the guitar breakdown sort of in the middle is really fun. But overall this song just isn't really life-changing, you know, it just exists. The third song on this album is What's Mine Is Yours. I really like this guitar part, it's just kind of fun. Korn is so powerful in this song. I love kind of the rhythm on that line. The guitar part kind of sounds like it's on the verge of a breakdown, like it's sort of fracturing as we're listening to it. Earlier, the guitar part sort of sounded like it was on the verge of a breakdown. It's breaking down right now, and it's so cool. You get Korn's biting voice, and then in the chorus, you get the best of Carrie. The song's like a double-edged sword, because you get the edge of Carrie and the edge of Korn, and it's like, whew, whew, I'm destroyed. I also really like Carrie's entire part there in the chorus. It's just weird and interesting imagery to imagine somebody cooking hearts at a stove or selling band-aids at your front door. And then at the end of the song, you get to hear the beginning again, which is a convention that's used more than once on this album to overarch the song and keep it all together. The next song on this album is Jumpers. Just as a premise, it is about suicide. Don't push me, I am not okay. There's no denying though that this guitar solo rocks. The fact that that guitar part sort of goes down is sort of reminiscent of how suicidal thoughts might be taking you downwards and downwards, and then this more calm guitar part seems like the person is resigned to their fate that they're going to kill themselves. The thing about the guitar part in the verses is It's steady throughout, sort of like a heartbeat. Keeps marching forward, which could also be a symbol of you too should continue to march forward. Looking at it from the suicide lens is only one way to look at this song. Obviously, there's other things to think about. That's just the way that I'm thinking about it right now, so that's what I'm talking about. It's devastating, but it's so well written. The fifth song on this album is Modern Girl. Already you can tell it's a lot more chill than the previous songs. We needed a little bit of relaxation here. If you're really interested, the analysis on Genius is really good. I like that everything got a lot more intense just then with Carrie shouting and the drums coming in, but I feel like Carrie could have shouted a little more. Even if it is about, you know, capitalism and sexism and stuff, it's just chill. My sister thinks it's scary. Other people have said that they don't think it's that, like, deep, which I can definitely see. One thing though, the harmonica could be reminiscent of Wild Wild West prisons. In like cartoons and things, you always see old men sitting in the prison, like playing the harmonica or whatever. The prison could also be kind of a symbol of how women are trapped in modern society in their roles. Obviously, I'm reading way too much into the harmonica. Anyway, that's that song. It's good. The next song on the album is Entertain. Janet is just so powerful. I love her. I love the hop. So this song is kind of about how entertainment, sort of pandering to the masses, not really saying anything, is very shallow. So there's one line where Carrie says, "We can drown in mediocrity, it feels sublime." And that's really interesting because, you know, sublime used to mean like inspiring awe. It could also be incredibly scared. The sublime was something that transcended. It's something of an oxymoron because something can't be mediocre and sublime. In the song, she talks a couple times about nostalgia, not coming up with anything new. I just think the message is really interesting, especially on this album, which is so innovative. This song really encapsulates kind of what the album is all about. The next song on this album is Rollercoaster. I love the way the guitar part flows. You know, it's a weird choice of metaphor to start the song with, like food, but it works. Overall, the song is sort of about a relationship kind of fizzling out and you wanting to go back to how it was at the beginning of the relationship. It's interesting how Corin and Carrie both had different metaphors for the same thing, and it's a little bit jarring to go from like food metaphors to roller coaster metaphors, but and even though this song is like a little more fun, it still has that signature distortion that's always on this album. Pay super close attention. May I just point out that Carrie was saying, "Want to go back to the way things were?" There were a couple seconds of silence, and then they went back to the very beginning of the song, aka the way things were. I love the texture on that specific guitar part that just happened. It's sort of like electric and bright. I just find that song so fun and so energizing, and even though it's not like about a super positive subject, I love it. The next song on this album is Steep Air. I like how this guitar part is sort of slow and a little bit searching seeming. So that song seems to be about kind of being stuck, maybe in a place or more likely in an era, and you can't really move forward from that time period or that event or whatever it is they're singing about. Of course, every album has to have some songs that aren't hits, and this is definitely one of them. It's kind of like the runway she sings about, all just flat. Nothing super like stand out about this song. The next song on this album is Let's Call It Love, which is 11 minutes long. I like the groove of that guitar part. This song starts out really strong. I'm gonna say it right now before my favorite changes. So that bell is sort of reminiscent of the bells that they ring at the beginning or end of a boxing match or a wrestling match. I don't know. That could be referencing earlier in the song when she was saying, let's go to the mat and battle it out, sort of like wrestling or boxing, I don't know which one. I feel like it's a little bit about being in a relationship where it's sort of more about winning than loving each other. So I'm pretty sure that right there is the end of the lyrics in this song. Still 5.5 minutes left in it. That's fun. I like this part too. So what's interesting is that sounded like a continuous piece of music, but in fact it is broken up into 2 songs on the album. Here's why I was just sitting and reading during the part with no words. At about 5 minutes, I feel pretty done with it. When it's just a wall of just guitar, it's just hard for me to like grasp onto that and like get what's going on. While it is definitely a good song, I often find myself skipping it, even though I know I like it. It just takes so long to get through, and eventually it just feels laborious. And that's just not something that a song should feel like. The final song on this album is Nightlight. And since it's a continuation of Let's Call It Love in a way, I'm going to start by playing Let's Call It Love and letting it fade into Nightlight. I mean the end of Let's Call It Love, not the entire thing. God, no. I like how this sort of ghostly part of the guitar kind of fits what she's saying about how the night is dark, she's finding her way home. It's interesting because the verses seem a little bit uncertain, questioning, searching, but then when it gets to the chorus, even though the lyrics are questions, it feels a little bit more demanding. I'm not entirely sure what the message of that song is, but I really enjoy the images she's putting together. When I'm analyzing and thinking about it, I think it could be about her family and her son, because she references a nightlight clearly, which is something you would put in a child's bedroom, and she does say the word family. So it could be her asking herself how to guide her family out of the darkness, the woods, as an album. I love how they decided to switch almost everything up for this album. I think it really works. As Carrie says in her book, suppose many of our longtime listeners were upset because we were taking perfectly normal songs and making them hard to listen to. The sound was blown out and grating. We wanted to make something fractious. We didn't want to please or appease. Perhaps that sounds arrogant or even callous, but we recoiled at the common tacit expectation that the more records you make, the more they'll start to feel cozy, settled in, mellowed out. While it is hard to listen to at first, once you get into it, you really get into it. I think this album is definitely a super clever album too, what with some of the things that happen in the songs and some of the lyrics are just really smart. This is definitely such an incredible album and I really enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it and see you next time.